Hey, Yetta, are we ready?
Ready for what?
Moving forward with the Dekker team. Moving forward together with the Dekker team.
We are honored to welcome you to another episode of Life's Inside Track. I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ken Dekker.
And it's where we get to share thoughts, techniques, tips, tools, and some truths that we all need, we all deserve, you, I, everyone, so we can turn our house into a home, our families thrive, and we build wealth wisely. We're going to consider what people are feeling about being ready for retirement. Building wealth wisely and being ready for retirement have a really interesting connection.
Yeah, and unfortunately, ready for retirement has more than one aspect to it, right? You can be ready for retirement because you're exhausted.
Burnt
you're
out.
Done at work. You're burnt out. You're feeling like you can't do this anymore. Or you can be ready for retirement because financially you're set. Right? And hopefully you can do the ready financially before you have to be ready like you're burnt out toast. And you don't want to be burnt toast and not be ready financially.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's polls. There's lots of polls. So this show, we've talked about retirement before.
Like fence posts? Like we put in those kind of polls?
No, not this time. We did that on Ryan's farm. Spent a whole weekend doing that. 500 polls. So this isn't 500. This was 2,000 people in a poll. And it's important to look at some of the information that's happening in general. And this may not apply to you. Maybe you have a pension, maybe a significant pension, maybe everything is already in order. And yet I suspect there's a lot of people you know that will resonate inside these statistics. So we thought we'd go back and have the retirement conversation again, because last time, which was only about a month ago, that we had a conversation around retirement, it got a lot of attention. Yeah. I think it gave us evidence that this is a real challenge.
And I think it's important to know too that it used to be you got a good job, you got a pension, you stayed there for 30 years, 35 years, you got 70% of your income for the rest of your retirement, and you were pretty much set. Especially if you added on, you purchased your house during that time, right? But now I think it's the minority that are getting a pension. So everybody else has to look after their own retirement because, you know, CPP and old age pension is not going to be enough to have a nice lifestyle with.
Well, it won't have you living really in, I don't know what you'd be doing with it. You'd be certainly on subsidy.
Yeah. So of these 2,000 people, these were 2,000 people in the age bracket of 55 to 64, okay? And they were not retired yet. So what did they say?
Well, 75% had less than $100,000 in savings. And 50% had under $5,000. Like, catch that. That ain't going to help the CPP and the Canadian pension very much, like the Canadian pension plan.
And maybe you're in that kind of boat where you just can't put extra money away. You're just making it. Or maybe a little behind, right? 75% believe that there's a retirement crisis. Now, maybe you don't care about retirement because you're of the belief that you should never retire and you work until you can't work anymore.
And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, but then that's retirement. And what do you do after you can't work anymore? Like my dad, who was forced retired at about 70, he wanted to keep working, but physically he got sick. And so the last couple of years financially, he just went downhill because, till he died, expenses keep coming in because he wasn't prepared.
Yeah, I know. So if you haven't read the wealth formula yet, you're going to want to go back and read that because it is a setup to assist people in prepping for retirement.
Yeah. And you might think, well, that's an old person's problem, right?
But 18 to 34-year-olds, the majority of them think that they'll never be able to buy a house. right?
Ooh.
A significant number are thinking house ownership is out of the realm of possibility. So we've been doing lots of shows on creative ways of opening that possibility back up, joint ventures, and anyway, lots of other great stuff. So go back and listen to those episodes if you're in that age range.
So really, people 18 to 34, 75% of them believe that
that's the majority, no?
Yeah, majority, 75% believe they'll never be able to afford a home. But interesting enough, 45% of Canadians say a home that they own is part of their retirement portfolio. It's part of their retirement plan.
Which is crazy.
Those two don't compete anymore. They don't compute anymore.
They don't compute. They certainly compete.
They compete, yeah.
Yeah, they compete. They don't complement each other.
Yeah. So like we've been saying, 90% of people who are millionaires own real estate. So how do we make it so that everybody can own some real estate, or at least everybody that should be owning real estate has the opportunity to own real estate?
Right, because it takes more than $1 million in investments. That's kind of the other half of why does it matter if we own real estate? Well, if we don't have a pension plan at work that's awesome, then real estate is probably, and you can watch other shows that we've done on this, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in the next segment, why real estate is such a viable alternative to not having enough, how to have it help you. So connect with us, become part of the community so we can keep feeding into you the information you need so you can make really awesome decisions. Angus Reid did a poll of 55-year-old or older Canadians. And wasn't it like 62% of them, 63% of them have delayed retirement? And a significant number of them believe they'll never be able to retire. Kind of like your dad. He thought he could never retire, and he was forced retired, however, passed away within 2 years of that, and unfortunately left his widow with significant debt. We even had to pay for the service and all the stuff associated with his passing because there was no money for it.
Yeah. So 32% are unable to retire. And so what's really hitting the people of today, Canadians of today, Ontarians of today, what's hitting them hard?
Inflation. It's been out of control for such a long time, really. That's maybe somewhat getting under control momentarily, but it depends on what happens next. So it is a very, what do you call that? Vulnerable area for people because they can't control that.
That's right. And then interest rates are higher. They're kind of still the 10, 20-year average around that 5%, or variables are 7, 8%. But it's a big shock compared to the 2 or 3% people were carrying, right? So that's a big shock.
And then taxes, carbon taxes. And the thing is, those couple of things affect everything. So expenses in general are going up and wages aren't necessarily.
Yeah. So when you hear the words money, investments, retirement, what emotions or feelings are coming up for you right now? We're honored to be positioning you to build wealth wisely because it's about much more than just the money.
Moving forward with the Dekker team. Moving forward together with the Dekker team.